So when you asked me in Philly at the convention center, I just finished presenting at WordCamp US, and it really it struck me at that moment that that this West African girl who's now much older, right, is just finished presenting at this tech conference, right, where you have all these people from around the world, talking about their expertise and their experiences. And I was just struck that I was in this space and that this was something that I just done. And it wasn't something that I'd ever seen myself do, or even think I had the opportunity to do. And so in that moment, really the totality of it just kind of hit me. And and I was going through those feelings as we were talking. And when you asked me if I'd be interested in writing a piece for Hero Press, it was just how am I gonna really communicate everything to you. And so that was really where all those feelings came from. It's really an honor to be in spaces like that. And it's an honor to be able to tell your story and to do it in front of other people and to be well received. It's really great of you to have Hero Press, right, where so many people can tell their stories.
Well, I'm glad. There's often a big emotional rush after speaking at a conference. And, it's like a bubble. When it pops, it goes.
Yeah. And, there are hundreds of us that are there just experiencing the conference. And then it's really intense as a speaker. You've spoken too at different, conferences. And
I think I spoke at that same one about Hero Press.
Yeah. So we've hit our 7:05. We've given about 5 minutes more for our attendees to join us. And so I think it's only fair for us to start.
Sure.
Let's start, everyone. I want to welcome our speaker. I'm going to let Topher pronounce his full name so I don't butcher it. So go ahead. Topher, just give us a brief intro and I'll tell you more that I know about Topher.
All right. I don't know how to do a screen share. How do I do that in WebEx?
So let's see. You should have presenter mode. Do you see the screen with the up arrow on it? The little rectangle with the...
I do not.
Okay. Do you see the microphone and the camera?
I see a microphone and a record button.
Okay. See anything else?
Oh, wait. Share content?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I want to share screen. And now you see my screen. Wonderful. All right. So we're ready to go?
Okay. Yeah. So give us, tell us a little bit about you, and then I will.
All right. Well, I'm going to skip here then. So my name is Topher DeRosia. Topher is the second half of Christopher. I'm a senior developer advocate at BigCommerce, which is an e-commerce software as a solution place where you can go sign up and get your store. I often tweet on Twitter with the hashtag BC4WP because a lot of what I do there is around the WordPress plugin that we have. You can find me on the internet at Topher1Kenobi, pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Slack, you name it. I have that name. I've been in web development for 25 years. Every few years I need to update that slide because I realize I'm getting older and older still. But I've been doing WordPress for 10 years now. Almost exactly. And so the last 2 years, I've been at Ecommerce as the developer advocate, and that job entails interacting between the company and developers that use our software to advocate for both sides. Actually, at the same time, I need to root for the developer against the company once in a while to get things done. But then, vice versa, I need to represent the company to developers so that they are happy to work with us. So did you say you were going to say something too?
Okay. So there are a few other things about Topher, right? Topher lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan with his wife, Kate, and he has 2 daughters. His daughters are Emma and Sophia.
Very good.
They attend WordCamp. And we saw each other. Your whole family was at WordCamp US last year. So, which was great. He's really Topher's really like a family, and I feel also that just the experience of being around him is like being around family. He's so like warm and welcoming, and so that's definitely a part of who he is, and it's great to have for him to like have that to have that, because when you go to conferences and when you go to a WordCamp and it's your first time, you don't really know who to talk to or who's approachable and who's not, and he definitely is approachable. So for the future WordCamps you go, hopefully we'll be going to them in person in the next year or so. Hopefully you'll have a chance to meet him and his family at a WordCamp. There's a cool fact about Topher that that he shared before, which was you're doing you made the official International Space Station Windows 95 desktop theme. Do you want to share a little about that, and then we'll go into your presentation?
Sure. I don't know if everybody remembers when Windows 95 came out. One of the cool things it could do is have desktop themes, and so a theme would include wallpaper and sounds and animated cursors and icons and all of that. And I made one for the International Space Station, which was quite new at the time. And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I was on the IIS website and there was a contact button, and I clicked it and I said, "Hi, I made a Windows 95 desktop theme. Would you like it?" And they said, "Sure." I only really interacted with one woman there. She was very nice, and she said, "This is amazing. I'm going to put it on our website and have it as a download." And that's all there was to it. I didn't like apply, or there was no contest. There was nothing. I just said, "Hi, I made a thing. Would you like to put it on your site?" And they said yes. So
nice.
That was cool.
That speaks to what you can do when you just ask, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So that's I think a really great segue into your presentation. So I'm gonna let you take it away.
All right. Let's dive right in. So our topic this evening is demystifying e-commerce, and that can mean a variety of different things. We're going to look first at some misconceptions, things that people commonly think are scary. Then we're going to look at how it really works. I'm sure you've all bought something online, but just like every other system, there are a lot of things that you don't see as a user. And then we're going to look at some solutions to common concerns. And then we're going to look at some long-term solutions, things that aren't necessarily obvious, but you should probably do now, and you will thank yourself in a couple of years. So some misconceptions. A while back, well, this was back in May, I tweeted, what's one thing about e-commerce that scares you or makes you nervous? And I picked some people here who are relatively well known in the community, and I got a variety of answers. One of these is mine, but came from someone else also. I'm nervous I won't set up and manage taxes correctly. And what if I get sued because we're hacked and things go south?
Yes.
I worry that I won't have all my I's dotted and T's crossed from all the little settings, payment processing, taxes, shipping, and inventory. And then taxes would be the death of me. So the first one was mine. Dealing with the government and money just gives me the willies. So I have a backstory a little bit. In the early 2000s, a client that I had ongoing, came to me and said, I would like to sell stuff on my website. And I had some friends who had worked with Authorize.net, which is a credit card processor, and I thought, how hard could it be? I mean, they want to make it easy for people to do this, right? I know PHP. I'll just code up a form. It'll submit the payment over there. They'll send it back. Everything will be easy. A week later, I was ready to just throw in the towel and say, I'm going to be a wood carver. I don't want to touch the internet anymore. And I actually did swear off e-commerce. I said, I'm never gonna do e-commerce again. I'm not gonna touch it because it was miserable. It was hard. And in the early 2000s, that was kind of the only option. Build your own thing. There weren't. This was before WordPress. There were a couple of open source projects, but they were not very advanced at all. So I said, nope, no more. I'm not doing e-commerce, which is why now I work for an e-commerce company. So I'm going to tie up that story a little bit more in a few minutes. So let's look at how e-commerce really works. A lot of this you're going to recognize. We start with awareness. A customer finds a website via search or an ad in a magazine or on TV or whatever, and then they go and they find the products. They choose a product, put it in a cart. This is not a trivial thing. If you're a developer, you know that having a persistent cookie across the site is not an easy thing, which shows how far we've come because everybody does it now. Then you do a purchase, and you might pay directly via card or via digital payments like PayPal or something like that. And in these days, there are even more flexible payment methods. There's a great site called Klarna, which basically lets you take out a microloan and pay in payments over time, but the vendor gets all the money up front. So if I'm selling things, I absolutely want to offer that because I get my money just as if you had paid with a card, but it provides flexibility to the merchant. Then we go to shipping. And shipping has changed dramatically, not just in the last couple of years, but in the last couple of months. The other day, I was riding in a vehicle. I was not driving. I was a passenger, and I got a text, and it was from UPS, and they said, "We are almost at your house. Here's a map." And it showed a map of my neighborhood with a little truck on it moving toward my house. And that was amazing to me. That wasn't there 6 months ago. But shipping is such a bigger deal now with the pandemic that they're making great strides. So then there's delivery. That's another cool thing that's happening. I'm starting to get photos on my phone left by the delivery guy. It's a photo of the package on my porch saying, look, I put it right there, which is super useful because we have a front door and a back door, and I never know which one they've left it at until they start leaving pictures. And then there's post-delivery service, and you probably have experienced some of this, but unless you set it up, you don't realize how big a deal it is. You need to send a thank you email. You need to have return and exchange options. You probably want to send them discount coupons for the next time they show up. And the list goes on more than I have here. You want to touch base with them 1 week later, 3 weeks later, 2 months later, 6 months later, because repeat customers are the ones that are going to be your bread and butter in the long run. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on with post-delivery service. So behind the scenes, the real magic is the payment processor. That's the hardest part about e-commerce, really. When somebody puts in their credit card, it goes to a payment processor like Stripe or Square or Authorize.net, and they take money from the customer's account. Then they have to pay the taxes, and then the money is transferred to the merchant's account. Sometimes that is reversed. Sometimes the money just goes right to the merchant, and the merchant has to deal with taxes, and that's a sorry situation because taxes are horrible. But that process is extremely regulated. There are rules and laws, and if you break them, bad things will happen. So we don't want to do that. And I realize I'm setting up e-commerce to sound like just a real peach here. But once we get to the solutions, you'll see that we've come a really long way, and a lot of these things aren't as scary as they may sound. After the payment is processed, there are a bunch of things that can happen, like pinging accounting or inventory software. If you're selling out of a warehouse, you need to keep track of how many you have. So your e-commerce software should be able to alert your inventory software that you've just decremented one and you have one fewer than you used to, and you need to put all the money and information into your inventory software. And depending on how big your organization is, you might have multiple warehouses and all that kind of stuff. So all that needs to happen. And then products are shipped if they're physical. They're not download products. So at the end of the day, UPS needs to go somewhere and pick up a box and send it somewhere. And that might be your house if you're a small business. It might be your warehouse. It might be your storefront. Who knows? So as a buyer, you don't necessarily think about all that stuff that goes on. You hit submit on your purchase and don't think about it again until you get an email that says, hey, there's a box on your front porch. So let's look at some solutions to some of these horrible concerns. Security is a big deal. Security can resolve a lot of things. And it's actually less difficult than you might think. First of all, you want to do all the normal website security standards. If you're just running a blog, then of course you have a solid password, right? And you're on a host that knows what they're doing. My second point here is get a host with good engineering and good support. And by that, I don't just mean being able to call them, but have them really deeply understand their platform so that you can say, I saw this weird thing and I don't know what that means. And they can say, oh, I recognize that as a hack, or I recognize that as a not hack, and you're okay. You want to check for PCI compliance. This is related to the transmission and storage of credit cards. It is a legal standard that was crafted by the credit card companies. It is extremely complex, and for the most part, you don't want to have to deal with it. I did that once. That customer that wanted to sell stuff, I had to look at the law and figure out if their server was compliant. Now, these days, you can get a host, excuse me, which will rent you a PCI compliant server. And from there, you need to use PCI compliant software. And depending on the software you're using, you can get assurances that that is the case without having to go through the code yourself. Don't store sensitive data on the web server. This is one of the few times I'm going to plug the company I work for. WooCommerce stores all of its data right on your web server. So customer data, purchase data, all that stuff. BigCommerce doesn't. We store it all on our servers. So if your web server gets hacked, there's nothing there to steal. You want to restore from backup, of course, but you're not going to be making awkward calls to customers saying, I'm sorry, your data has been stolen. Enable fraud protection. And there are a variety of ways to do this. There's some great add-ons for pretty much every e-commerce platform. Like Bolt is a checkout system that does anti-fraud stuff. And it's really good. It works with WooCommerce and BigCommerce. It works for easy digital downloads. And their shtick is fraud protection. But as a byproduct, one of the things that they've pointed out is that they can average 30% more income in sales than if you didn't use them because you're eliminating fraud. So that's a big deal. And then enable DDoS protection. A DDoS is distributed denial of service, and that's where bad actors attack your website and try to make it unavailable. They basically make more requests than it's able to handle. Somebody is asking to annotate this talk. I'm going to decline for now. So somebody could try to take down your server by asking it for too many things. Your host can help with this. Your e-commerce platform can help with this. If you're running BigCommerce, then we have stuff set in place to help fight DDoS. So you want to basically find out what's available to you. Your host is the first place you should ask. And you just call support and say, hi, do you offer DDoS protection? And they should have a plan that they can articulate right away. All right. Taxes. As I mentioned at the beginning, taxes are horrible. And if you can avoid it at any cost, you should. Taxes are, in e-commerce, taxes are levied both by where you are, where you're selling from, and to where you are selling. Except the laws are different for all of those. For example, I'm in Michigan, and Michigan does not charge me because I live here and I'm selling from here. But somebody in Oklahoma gets charged by Oklahoma because that's where they live and they're selling from there. Now, in Michigan, if I'm selling to Oklahoma, then I have to pay Oklahoma some taxes because I'm selling to there. But I don't have to pay to, say, Colorado because they don't charge that way. So you have to figure out who is charging when all the time. And it's horrible. And I'm going to cut right to the chase here and say, get a service. Don't try and figure it out. It's not worth it. Avalara and TaxJar are both wonderful options. They're both available for BigCommerce and WooCommerce. And they take all the headache out. You install it as a plugin with WooCommerce. With BigCommerce, it just comes included. And so when you're checking out, Avalara will just say, the buyer is in location A and we're shipping to location B. This is what the taxes are. And it does it instantly. It's amazing. So get a service. All that said, you should always consult a tax professional, a business tax professional for your geographic area. I have in the past used, say, a lawyer from another place to talk about, some random thing. Taxes are geographic sensitive, so you want to talk to a tax professional in your geographic area and find out what your laws are. Tell them you're using either Avalara or TaxJar, and if they're any good at all, they're going to know exactly what's going on and be able to guide you accurately. So payment processing. This is a hard one also. How do you get the money from the customer to your bank? These days, you have a lot of options. Back in the early 2000s, there was really Authorized.net and PayPal. And neither one of them were great options at the time. Authorized.net has actually been around a really long time, and they're very, very powerful. They were really powerful in the early 2000s, but they were designed for working with large companies with cash registers, 1,000 cash registers, not for Topher in Grand Rapids selling one thing. So they've all come a really long way now, and your options are really varied. The most popular right now are Stripe and PayPal. Authorized.net's still in there, pretty big. Amazon Pay allows you to pay with your Amazon account. Adyen is very international. So if you're going to sell overseas, you might want to look at that. There are a variety of different things to look at when you're considering a gateway. Processing fees is the most common thing to look at. How much money are they going to charge you to process? But it shouldn't be the only thing you look at. Make sure they work with your bank. All of the ones I have listed here will work with just about any bank. But let's say you live in central Mexico and you want to sell locally sourced jewelry, and your bank is in town and there's only one branch. You really need to talk to them and say, hey, what payment processor do you handle? And they will probably handle Stripe, which does international, and they'll probably do Adyen. So contact your bank and make sure that they're going to work with what you choose. And look what currencies are handled. Again, if you're selling internationally at all, make sure that your processor handles currencies. And all of them will have this stuff listed right on their homepage. You don't need to dig for this information. So when you're looking at one, again, consider the processing fees, whether they work with your bank, what currencies are handled. There is value if you're already selling. Like if you own a storefront and you're already using, say, Square, there's value in sticking with somebody you've been with for a while. Loyalty can help you out there. So talk to whoever you're using if you're already selling something. Shipping is another scary thing. How do you get it from here to there? One of my less favorite e-commerce stories, I was helping a guy who sells frozen soup. It comes in a plastic bag, so it's frozen like a brick. You just take this brick and you drop it in boiling water, and 11 minutes later you have a bag of soup, and you pull it out, cut the corner, and pour it in a bowl. It's great, except it has to stay frozen during shipping. And so he had to know where it was going to ship, how long it was going to be, how long it was going to take to get there. And then he would go to the grocery store for every order. He'd go to the grocery store, buy a foam cooler and a bunch of dry ice. And he had a little math algorithm he did on paper to figure out, okay, the soup weighs this much. It's going to travel this far for 7 days to a hot climate. So I need that much dry ice, and load it all up. And it was horrible. It was a nightmare. These days, your shipper can help with a ton of that stuff. They'll show up with the right materials, and they know how long it takes to get there and all of that. So my recommendations are to start with, use a shipper you're already familiar with. If you already have a storefront and UPS comes to your shop every day, you probably already have an account with them. Go with it. I like that. If you're starting from scratch, shop around for rates. They are different, and they vary based on what you're selling and where you're selling or sending it to. And then leverage what your platform offers, because rates can often be discounted. For example, BigCommerce has arrangements with all the big shippers, and so our rates will be a little bit lower than if you just called them up yourself and said, "Hi, I want to ship stuff." And often many of the setup procedures are streamlined. Again, both with BigCommerce and WooCommerce, the user interface is set up to be aware of the common shippers. They know who FedEx, UPS, and the Postal Service are and what questions need to be filled out in your little admin form. So look at what your platform offers. Out of the box, WooCommerce doesn't do any major shipping except Postal Service, I don't think. So if you want UPS or FedEx, you have to buy a plugin. BigCommerce doesn't require buying a plugin. It's just that it's just there. So if you're already using USPS, you don't care about that. If you are picking a new one, maybe you want to pick a platform that comes with a built-in. Inventory management seems complicated. This was one of my responses for my tweet. You need to be careful not to oversell, or you will be sad when somebody is on the phone saying, "Where's my widget?" and you don't have any more. There's some simple options. All decent e-commerce platforms will let you enter at the beginning how many you have and count down by sale. And from a very simple standpoint, that should work just fine. And then many platforms offer add-ons to get more elaborate. So maybe your widgets have 2 different pieces and you're selling one at a time, but sometimes both. You can get add-ons to help with that. And then there are some advanced options. There are a number of third-party inventory systems which can get very elaborate and work with your warehouse software and communicate in real time with your website and all of that, so that you can keep things in order. Quality platforms offer an API so that you could write custom code for your in-house inventory system. It is not uncommon at all for a small business to have inventory run out of an Excel sheet written by somebody's cousin 10 years ago. Nobody's software is going to work with that out of the box. But a good platform like BigCommerce will offer an API so that you could get your custom-made inventory system working with it. So what about long-term confidence? We looked at, whoa, I didn't know that was going to change that slide. We looked at, short-term things that are immediately concerning. But in the long run, you should get a good support structure. And I don't mean being able to call somebody at midnight and say, my site's down. I mean everything. You want somebody who can advise you financially, give you business advice, marketing help. And you might get these from third-party agencies. A lot of this stuff can be provided by BigCommerce. But you want wise people advising you, even if you know what you're doing. Like world-class tennis players still have a coach. It's always good to have somebody watching your back and saying, hey, you might want to look over here, or there's this new tool, or something like that. So talk to whomever is providing your e-commerce and see what they recommend. Make use of the training and education provided by the platform. Every e-commerce platform will have tutorials, they'll have videos, training available. They want to help you understand the platform so that you can become successful with it. Part of my job at BigCommerce is to create training and education materials. I put out a new video every Friday about how to do X with BigCommerce. It's out there. If you're selling, you owe it to yourself to understand the platform that you're using, and you should research that. And then get a good team. It's not uncommon for people to want to build their own store themselves, especially with WooCommerce. It's a free WordPress plugin. You download it, you turn it on, and away you go. But if you're doing anything even remotely unique, it can be very well worth it to at least talk to a developer, maybe hire a developer, they can get things done faster than perhaps you could. And if you value your time more than money, then it's well worth it. You should rely on trusted sources like your e-commerce platform to make quality recommendations for developers. Whoa. That was a surprise. Hang on here. All right, here we are. So, the screenshot here on the right is at BigCommerce, and it is options that you can use. We have an entire gallery of developer agencies that you can hire or ask advice of and things like that. WooCommerce has one as well. You can go to their page and find their list of developers. And a good developer can help you know what questions are good to ask. Even if you don't hire them to code, they can say, hey, have you thought about X? Have you thought about this other thing? You need to ask your host if they provide SSL. And if they do, is it free? You need to ask your e-commerce platform what payment gateways they offer. You know, those kinds of questions. So to sum up this slide, you need a team of people, really. You want a team of people. You can do this alone. It's painful. But if you have a team, you'll go farther. So I'll leave it at that. So in summary, you can do this. I said that I swore off e-commerce because it was horrible. It's been very nearly 20 years, and we've come a long way. E-commerce is way easier now than it was then. My second point here, every service, vendor, and add-on maker in e-commerce benefits from your success. They make money when you are successful. So if you're successful, they're all successful. They want to help you. So don't be afraid to talk to them. Talk to all of them. Call your e-commerce provider. Email your plugin developer. Talk to your website developer. They all want to help you. And feel free to contact me at any time. You can see my address here is topher@bigcommerce.com. You can ask me anything you want about e-commerce. It doesn't have to be related to BigCommerce or anything. On Twitter, there I'm at Topher1Kenobi. I'm on there a lot. More than I should, probably. There's some resources here that I can send around after the talk. The BigCommerce blog is not about BigCommerce. It is about e-commerce, and I can't recommend it enough. It's wonderful material no matter what platform you're on. And it's about selling. It's about being a shop owner. It's really great stuff. There's the partners link to our developer partners. And then bonus reading. This talk is kind of an excerpt from a much, much longer blog post with a ton more detail. And that's the link to it. And I recommend it. And that is the end.
Okay, Topher. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to figure out how to not share.
How to not share. Oh, I think I probably help you out with that. Let's see.
Stop sharing. There we go. And now you should all be able to see me.
Did I do something?
Haha. No. Now you're sharing. There we go.
Okay. All right. Yeah, see, I helped you stop sharing.
Excellent.
So let's see.
There's a bunch of questions in chat.
There's chatting. There was one question, and I want the person who asked it to kind of expand on it some more. Kumayan, if I'm saying that right, asked a question about Magento.
Yeah. So it's a still used developer. So let me tell you a couple things about Magento. Magento 1 has been a mainstay of e-commerce for many, many years. And I think as of last month, it was officially retired. There are no more security enhancements, and no one should ever use it again. Adobe owns Magento now, and if you go to Adobe, they will not give you Magento 1. So Magento 2 is a completely new rewrite. If you are a Magento 1 developer, Magento 2 will not seem normal to you at all. So a lot of people leaving Magento 1 because it's not supported anymore are actually looking at different options other than Magento, because you have to rewrite everything anyway. Then you might as well look around and see what's available. So the question is, Magento still use developer? Absolutely, unless you are that developer. Magento is a very large, heavily engineered machine, and the people who build sites with it spend their lives learning it. So it's not something that you should just download. In fact, I think the open source solution is being retired also, so you have to buy it. But it's not something I recommend you just download out of curiosity and say, "Can I build a store here?"
Okay. Awesome. Does that answer your question? With no follow-ups, I'm going to take that as a yes.
All right.
You mentioned security plugins, and I saw WordFence and their security, and you also mentioned SSL certificates. So, what do you think are a couple of the ways to make your site, a beginner, right? What are a couple of ways that someone who's new to e-commerce can start to make sure that their site is secure?
Yeah. The first step, in my opinion, is to talk to your host. Explain to them, I'm going to run a store.
Okay.
And for example, SiteGround.com has several offerings which are not good for e-commerce. It's just not built for it. And the price reflects that. It's very appropriate for other things. So they would direct you to a different offering, something that they still offer, but it's going to come with PCI compliance out of the box. So talk to your host, tell them what you're doing, and get some guidance there. Absolutely install a security plugin. There's iThemes, there's Security. Security is a little bit different from the others. Security is more of a service where you interact with people and they keep your site locked down. Excellent service. I highly recommend them. WordFence is good. iTheme Security is good.
I saw you mention.
But you should understand what they're doing. Yeah, you should understand what they're doing as well. It's worth your while as a vendor, as someone who takes money from people and needs to not lose that money. So learn about things like SSL, Secure Sockets Layer. What is it doing? How does that work? Learn about blacklisting IP blocks, which you may or may not want to do. I see Joe in chat is saying use Cloudflare. They offer a lot of that stuff, SSL, DDoS protection, all that stuff. But it comes with its own issues, which may not bother you at all, or maybe a deal breaker. I had one store a couple of years ago that Cloudflare was not working well with it. It was messing with inventory because they were caching, because that's what they do. They're good at it.
Okay, so caching it's interesting because I was just reading a Reddit post where someone is asking about starting an e-commerce site, and they were like, well, what are some of the things that I should think about? And I think caching is something that you should think about, when it comes to
absolutely.
like you want to be careful, and do you have some thoughts on like what?
Yeah. Should I describe what caching is?
Yeah, that's probably like a good
Okay.
one.
So when you point your web browser at a server and you say, I would like this web page, usually, especially if it's WordPress, the web server takes that request and then it starts to build the page. It goes to the database and it asks for a bunch of information. Then it uses PHP to pull together a bunch of other little files and assemble them into a web page. And then that's what it sends out the door to you. This takes time. It's milliseconds, but it's still time. And if you have a particularly poor server, it can actually be more than seconds, and that's really sad. So caching takes that page that it built, and it saves a copy. And the next person who comes along and says, I want this page, it just gives them the copy. It doesn't go build the page from the database and running a bunch of files. And it's way faster, way faster. For example, building a page might take 800 milliseconds, but serving a cached file might take 10 milliseconds. So it's really crazy. So you want caching. You want caching always in WordPress, forever. If you're running WordPress, you should be caching. Hosts provide it, and if they don't, you can get plugins, lots of options. With e-commerce, it gets tricky because there are things you don't want cached. For example, your shopping cart. Say you go to the store, you put something in your cart, and it saves that copy. The next person who comes along gets that copy, and they're looking at what you put in your cart, not what they wanted to buy. And that doesn't work at all. It's very awkward. So caching solutions need to be e-commerce aware, and they need to be aware of the solution that you're using. I really like WP Rocket as a plugin, and they are pre-aware of WooCommerce and BigCommerce. It's the only one I know of that is pre-aware of BigCommerce. So if you went and got WP Supercache out of the WordPress.org repository for free, it would do a great job caching, but you would need to go in and whitelist all of the pages that should not be cached, which works fine. You can do that. But if you use WP Rocket, it's all done for you. And I love that. I love it when the plugins I use are aware of what I'm using. So caching is important. You should do it. Often your host will provide it. Most hosts provide it. SiteGround, WP Engine, Kinsta, Conversio, Pagely. Most WordPress managed hosts provide caching now. That said, it can still be worth it to get the right plugin and add on to it. WP Rocket offers a number of things that built-in caching systems do not. The built-in ones focus very heavily on server-side caching. And WP Rocket can offer a lot of things in browser caching, where they can send rules to your browser to say only download images after a month or something like that. So it can be worth running both. Does that answer the question out adequately?
I think it does. So Zach has a question about what are some great e-commerce hosts, and and I don't want to sell any products, or services, but it is a legit question. And so,
sure.
How about, what's the safe way of doing it? How about maybe like 3 or 4 of the most well-known, and then
sure.
How about any that you've experimented with? I feel like that would be like a good bet.
Okay. Yeah. I have some I have some rules that you can use to apply to your host hunt and help you narrow it down. Budget hosting is almost always bad. Now, that doesn't mean a budget host is bad. For example, SiteGround is a wonderful host, but don't run e-commerce on their $5 platform. Run it on the $40 platform. And there are a variety of reasons for this. A plugin like WooCommerce, the more successful you get, the more system resources it uses. So it will progressively hurt your server over time. BigCommerce doesn't do this. However, BigCommerce has a thing called webhooks, where when a customer buys something, then the BigCommerce server pings the web server to increment inventory. This has been painful for WP Engine, so we had to figure out a solution there. So my first recommendation is to don't buy the cheapest package at any host if you're doing e-commerce. Unless you're testing. Like if you're going to throw up your store and just see if the software runs, that's fine. What you need to avoid is heavy traffic in e-commerce on a budget host.
And because heavy traffic can slow your site down, and then it can also get expensive for you too, right? Like your host could start increasing the cost of of the service for you. So that's why that's a really great point, that you should go with a higher price point plan, because it'll help prevent those issues from happening. So just a thought. I'll let you continue.
So hosts that I've worked with, there's a lot. SiteGround, WP Engine, Convesio is a great one. Pagely is for really high-end stuff, but is wonderful. That's where HeroPress is.
Okay, plug. That's good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they host HeroPress for free, so I'm going to plug them because they're nice.
Oh, that's amazing. So definitely give Pagely some props.
That's right. Honestly, I haven't run into a host that struggles unless you're buying their cheap platform. There's absolutely a place for $5 hosting, and e-commerce is not that place. So just make sure that the system resources you have purchased match your e-commerce needs, and they will absolutely grow over time. Hopefully, you're going to explode in growth, and you're going to get 1 million users, and your costs for hosting will go up appropriately, and that's great.
So then finding a host that you can grow with then, right, is probably something to keep in mind.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Now, I have one question for you, and that question ties to multi-site, right? There are a lot of people that are thinking about multi-site now with e-commerce, and multi-site is the ability for you to host multiple instances or multiple websites within one larger one. So WordPress.com is a multi-site. That's the best example of a multi-site, I think, that's really like given within the community. What are your thoughts about multi-site with e-commerce, and anything worth considering? Like if you want people to sell individual products underneath like an umbrella of the store.
Sure. Yeah. So this is where I'm going to pitch my own company pretty hard. With WordPress multi-site, it uses one install of the files for WordPress. However, every site gets its own set of database tables. And so if you have, I think there's like 18 tables in a WordPress site. So if you have 100 sites on your network, you're going to have 1,800 database tables. WooCommerce is going to match that and make 1 million database tables. BigCommerce does not. We don't make any extra tables. We don't store stuff in the database. So in the long run, I'm just outright going to say BigCommerce is going to be your best bet for WordPress multi-site storefront, and we have people running 30 or 40 stores in WordPress on a network with one back-end account at BigCommerce. So it uses the same inventory across the network. It uses the same processor or credit card processor across the network. It's really good stuff.
Okay.
So that was pretty preachy, but I would say that whether I work there or not. It's just the way it is.
Okay. Well, it's good. I think evangelism is a good thing because it's not until you do something that you can give like really good advice on it.
Yeah.
So are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask of Topher?
I have a couple questions.
Okay, sure, go for it.
Is there anyone here who's not living in the New York area? Anybody from like outside the country?
So I'm gonna mute.
Does he see me?
Or put it in chat.
Okay.
Not on the bird.
Okay. All right. So I've muted back. I think that's pretty safe too. If you're joining us from another part of the world, let us know. Okay, cool. Mexico, Ireland.
Yeah. So ever since the pandemic, I've been doing these meetup talks, and they're geographical. I'm at WordPress New York City right now, but as the pandemic has progressed, more and more meetups are having people from all over the world because it doesn't matter.
That's the exciting part.
I think that's really cool.
So I'll say that's definitely the most exciting part is having having WordPress community members from other parts of the world join us. It's wonderful because you can't go to a WordPress meetup in another part of the world. It's just not even in another state. It's not realistic.
Yeah.
So I know that this is probably something I'm going to continue doing, is to have mine as webinars. Fran says that she listens in the UK, the US, and let's see. Okay, and Ireland as well. Those WordPress groups. What? I think that's a really good challenge. I'm going to take that challenge up. I'm going to join. I did join a Jamaican meetup, WordPress meetup event, but I think it didn't pan. I think that they had some scheduling issues, but I will definitely make it a point of joining some international meetup groups. I want to be like you.
Yeah, so this summer I've spoken in Bangalore, India, and Uganda, and Nigeria.
Nice.
In London.
Okay.
And it's just like this. I'm still sitting in my bedroom.
I appreciate you for saying that too, because I'm always looking for speakers, and I would very much welcome everyone in this chat to present for me. Let's start having a conversation about it, because every month, there can be like a new speaker, and I am definitely open to speaking with you about the topic, to working with you on your slides if you need some feedback as well, so that you feel comfortable. And it's interesting. I had a conversation about as a beginner, what is it that I can offer, right? Like, what can I speak about? And everybody has a story. And I think that's the beauty of what you do through having people share their stories, is that you don't have to be super experienced or been in the space for, 5 or 10 or 15 years or so.
Sure.
You have a lot that you can offer. And
so you want to know a cool thing?
Okay, I want to know a cool thing.
We're working on expanding HeroPress. And one of the things we want to do is make a catalog of speakers.
Okay.
So that you could go to our website and say, I need a Spanish speaker who can talk about e-commerce.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter where they are, because you're doing remote talk. And then, so you as a speaker could say, I live in this country, I'm in this time zone, I speak these languages, and I am knowledgeable in these topics, and here are links to my WordPress.tv examples so you can see how I speak. And as a meetup owner, you just go in and say, what do I want to hear about this month? And you find somebody and make a relationship, and away you go.
Well, this is also a really good. I think that adds value, and I want you to definitely share that with me. And that's something that I will share with our community. And it's interesting that you bring that up. There is a speakers training that happens periodically, and I do want to share that with you. It's it's called a diverse speaker workshop, and the next ones that will be scheduled are for September and October. And I'm going to drop in this link for you to see more about what's being offered, but I'll read it a little bit. Essentially, it's having trouble getting women and underrepresented groups to speak at meetups and WordCamps. And it's a training group to assist you with learning how to become more comfortable and how to make presentations. And so I just dropped the link, and I hope that you'll just take some time to fill out the form and even participate. And I welcome you, if you choose to participate, to please stay in touch with me so that I can invite you to speak here with us. Because if you're so motivated to attend the training, then please come back and practice.
Yes, absolutely.
Practice with me, right? Like, and we'll have you come in and just apply whatever it is that you learned. Yes. So
is this your Binders project?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Is there something else? Yes, there's also, I think we're rounding off our time, right, Topher? So there are a couple of other things I want to mention. Yeah. There is the Women of WordPress New York City Meetup Group event series. We're under the whole our community's meetup group, and it's for Women of WordPress within our community, and we're going to start having an event series where we're going to meet up. If you have if you have a WordPress skill that you want to learn, or if you want, to talk about, a WordPress goal that you have, we're going to have a meeting that will have multiple, what do you call it in Zoom? Multiple Zoom rooms, right? So, breakout rooms. Yeah, so we're going to have breakout rooms, and they can be all women, or they can be mixed with women and men, or maybe men want their own breakout room too to talk about their WordPress interests. And so, I think that's a great way to strike a balance of, really providing opportunities, to learn from each other, and for Women of WordPress New York City to create a space for women to also, talk about their goals and their interests as well, so that we have the experience of both men and women, and then the support and appreciation, for every group. And there's one other thing. So there's a diversity speaker. There will be the breakout rooms once a month. Well, and Zach says, sometimes too many options are no good either. That's an excellent point. The challenge, though, is that I've been getting a lot of feedback that being exclusive creates exclusion. And the desire is to be supportive. And I think that having breakout rooms will strike that balance, right? So you'll have the breakout room for both, men and women. They have that option of joining and sharing their goals and their interests, like monthly, to keep, to stay accountable to each other, and to just kind of develop, that kind of accountability. And then we'll also have, a breakout room, for the women of WordPress, to do the same, within their own space. And I think that will strike a really nice balance. And then one final thing is there's going to be an upcoming meetup that I'm working on how men can be allies of women in tech. So I hope that that you'll be able to make it. Topher is definitely one. And just your participation in all our meetups and your presence, definitely shows that there is a space for support and that we are doing our best. And so thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. And I know this has gone a little bit longer than what we attended, but I think it was like a really good conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everybody off of mute. And so we can spend another couple of minutes or so getting to know each other. And then we'll close off for the night. So I do want us all to talk to each other. So we're unmuted. Right.
Yeah, I didn't get it either.
Okay. So there's conversation.
I am a client of yours.
Okay.
I've tried this before. It doesn't work very well.
This came out like 2 weeks ago.
Avis is Avis is having that conversation. And let's see.
I'm on the Make WordPress Slack, and I'm there all the time, and I would love to chat with all of you there at some point.
That's a great. That's a great option. So
That's why I see it.
I'm going to drop. How about I drop that? Because the thing about Make WordPress is a lot of people don't know it exists, right?
But I didn't see yours. See it.
I'm going to drop in Make WordPress Slack.
What's Tina? Hi, this is Julie. Hi, Tina. Nice to see you. Thank you, Topher, for tonight's lecture. I really learned a lot. Hi, Topher. In order to contact you, you said you were in WordPress again? I know that there's background.
Sure, I can mute all and then okay, let's see.
I'm unmute.
Okay. Are you unmuted?
Yes, I am.
I think I'll have to mute everyone individually. Go ahead. Sorry.
Where? What channel? Oh, channel 7?
Still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Somebody with channel 7. So I just wanted to tell Topher that he said that he was in WordPress, exactly, just in WP WordPress. Is that what he meant?
You mean for Slack?
Oh, no, how to get in contact with you. I know that you're with Ecommerce, at the end, of course, I got your email. All right, so I could do that.
Yeah.
But what did you mention before about WordPress? And you said that you were in all the time, or just ignore that? So in order to...
There's a Slack channel for WordPress, and I put a link in the chat to make.wordpress.org/chat. And
awesome.
It's a great place to talk to other WordPressers, and I'm there a lot.
It is. That's an excellent point. In fact, there's so much that goes on in Make that you kind of sort of should be on it for the purpose of just...
It's where WordPress is made.
Yeah, there are different... So Make actually has... Hold on. I can do a screen share, right? Let me screen share Make. Doesn't look like I'm able to. But so there are different channels. There's a channel on accessibility. There are like announcements. There are community events. That's a really great place to go if you want to learn about meetups and WordCamps as they're happening. Because folks like essentially everywhere in the world, at the time that fits their schedule, is on Make, and you wake up talking to someone who it's almost nighttime for them, right? That's really how it works. You're all collaborating on your own schedule. I hope you follow that link to Make.
Yes, I'm writing it down too real quick, and I'm going to follow it afterwards, because once we leave the presentation, then it's all gone. But I copied it as fast as I could, so when you send the link again, that's all there.
Yeah, and so you can always reach out to me too.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just reach out too and let me know. So Joe mentions the New Jersey WordPress community Slack channel for you to join that as well. It's interesting, because there are these different opportunities to get to know each other, and there are meetups that do have their own Slack channels. So theirs is WP Montclair on Slack, and if you join that, it's a chance for you to learn more about what's happening in the tri-state area. And I think this is like a really good wrap up. I think that I really want to thank you, Topher, for sharing what you did with us today. And I really want to thank, we had about 32 folks, check in, 32, 33 or so.
Nice.
Check in. And it's interesting, because you have more turnout online than you do, in
person, yeah.
Yeah, when you're physically in the space.
Yep.
And so it's a pleasure to see so many folks, join us. And if you have a local meetup, drop it in, and I would love to, to make a few of those events as well. That would be awesome. Thank you. That's really great feedback. So let me know and let us know about local meetups in your area. And thank you so much for joining. I'm glad that you thought it was really informative. That's awesome. Thanks, Leonard. And is that everything? Do you want to?
I think that's it.
We're going to end on this note. Awesome. All right. So this video will be available. Reach out to me. And WebEx actually has a password component to it. And so what I've been doing is I've been linking to it on my own website, and then you can reach out to me for the password link, because WebEx is a little bit different in that way.
All right.
So I'm gonna drop that link here for you, and then I'm gonna link the video there and have the password as well. And I'll send out a message to everyone that registered for the event with this information, and also with the password for them to watch it, so you have a chance to do that. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for making it, and I'll see you in a month or so. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you so much, Topher.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Say hi to the family.
Much.
I will.
Bye.
Take care.